It was exactly 2:37 on a Sunday afternoon in March when my son Tyler looked me dead in the eye and delivered the sentence that would shatter my heart. Standing there in front of all his friends, holding a beer, he laughed and said, "Mom is just one of those dramatic old women who doesn't understand anything." Every laugh that followed felt like glass breaking inside my chest. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg for respect. I simply stood up with a terrifying calmness, thanked everyone for the barbecue, and left the house in silence. What Tyler didn't know was that on Monday morning at exactly 9:14, when the bank called him, his entire life was going to change forever. The thick smoke from the grill still hung in the patio air. I could smell the roasting meat mixed with the sickly sweet, cheap perfume Tiffany, Tyler's girlfriend, always wore. The afternoon Arizona sun burned my skin as I walked toward my old white sedan parked on the street. My hands were shaking when I grabbed the keys in my pocket. I could feel the hot metal against my sweaty palm. I could hear the laughter continuing behind me, bouncing off the walls of the garden I had planted myself, tree by tree. There was that bitter taste in my mouth, the kind that only appears when you have been humiliated in front of strangers. But I kept my head high. Not a single tear fell. Not there. Not in front of them. I started the car and drove aimlessly for exactly 22 minutes through the streets of Phoenix. Everything passed in a blur through the tears that finally, now that I was alone, fell uncontrollably down my cheeks. I stopped in an empty parking lot near the park where I used to take Tyler when he was a little boy. I turned off the engine, and there, without witnesses, I allowed myself to break completely. But there is something you need to know, something that changes everything. What would happen on Monday morning would not only wipe that arrogant smile off my son's face, but it would also make him understand the true weight of his words. And the countdown had already begun. Less than 20 hours. Do you know what was the worst part of it all? It wasn't Tyler's words. It was the look. That look of complicity he shared with Tiffany right after saying it. She was wearing a designer outfit that I knew cost more than my entire monthly pension as a retired secretary. Shiny red heels, nails perfectly painted. I was wearing the same light blue cotton blouse my father had given me for my 50th birthday, the same one I had washed by hand hundreds of times because I didn't want it to get ruined in the washing machine. Tiffany smiled when Tyler said those words, a small, barely perceptible smile, but I saw it perfectly. What neither of them knew was that I smiled too, on the inside, because I had been preparing for this moment for 3 days. 3 days since I overheard, by accident, a conversation I never should have heard. But before I continue, I need you to do something for me. Check if you are subscribed to the channel and leave a like. And tell me in the comments, from what part of the world are you listening to my story? From Texas? From California? From New York? I really want to know how far my words have reached. Now, let me explain how I got to that Sunday, because this story doesn't start there. It begins exactly 3 years, 5 months, and 16 days earlier. I know because I kept count. It was October of 2021 when Tyler lost his job as a graphic designer at an ad agency. He arrived at my apartment on a Thursday night. It was 11:15, with 2 large suitcases and a cardboard box. "Mom, they fired me," he said with red eyes. "I have nowhere to go. Sarah left me. I don't have money for rent." Sarah was his girlfriend back then, a girl who seemed like a good person, but disappeared from his life as soon as things got tough. I should have seen it as a sign of what was coming. "I need to stay with you for a few weeks," he told me, "just until I find something. I promise." And I, like always, said yes. "Of course, sweetheart. This is your house. Stay as long as you need." What I didn't know then was that those weeks would turn into months, and those months into years. At first, everything seemed normal. Tyler looked for work. He sent out resumes. He went to interviews. I was working part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, and that was enough for the two of us. Tight, but enough. I stopped buying the cuts of meat I liked and started buying the cheapest ground beef. I stopped going to the hair salon and learned to cut my own hair in front of the bathroom mirror. Small sacrifices, or so I thought, but I'll talk about that later. The first year was hard, but manageable. Tyler finally got freelance gigs here and there. He didn't earn much, but something was something. He gave me $200 a month to help with expenses. I paid the rent of $1,400, the utilities, the food, everything else. But I didn't complain. He was my son, my only son. Do you know when everything started to change? It was a Tuesday, April 13th, 2022, at 6:30 in the evening. I got home from work and found Tyler in the living room with a girl, Tiffany. She was sitting on my sofa, the one I had bought secondhand 10 years ago, acting like she owned the place. She was wearing a tight black dress and those red heels I would see so many times later. "Mom, this is Tiffany," Tyler said, "my girlfriend." 3 months later, Tiffany practically lived in my apartment. She didn't pay anything, didn't even offer to help with the cleaning. She left her stuff thrown everywhere. Her expensive makeup products took up the entire bathroom counter. Her designer shoes blocked the entryway. And Tyler started to change. Let me rephrase that. Tyler started to turn into someone I didn't recognize. "Mom, can you wash Tiffany's clothes too?" he would ask me. "Mom, don't cook so early today. Tiffany eats late." "Mom, can you sleep on the sofa tonight? We need privacy." Each request was a small humiliation. Each one hurt a little more than the last. But I said yes. I always said yes. What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning. The real Tyler, or what Tyler had become, hadn't completely appeared yet. 6 more months passed. I retired from the dental office in November of 2022. My pension was $1,200 a month, less than what I paid just for rent. I had to start dipping into the savings I had tucked away. The money I had been saving for 30 years for an emergency or to finally take that trip to Europe I had always dreamed of. Tyler knew it, Tiffany knew it, but neither offered to help more. In fact, Tyler started giving me less, $100 a month instead of $200. "I need to save for our future," he said. Our future. His and Tiffany's, not mine. And then came the moment that changed everything. The moment my eyes finally opened. It was Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, at 3 in the morning. I got up to go to the bathroom and heard voices in Tyler's room. The door was just barely ajar. I know I shouldn't have listened. I know I should have gone back to my room. But something in the tone of their voices stopped me. It was Tiffany speaking, and what she said froze my blood. But that I will tell you in a moment, because what I heard that night not only changed everything, it showed me exactly who my son was and who the woman he had decided to share his life with was. I'll just tell you this. After that night, I started planning, I started preparing, and I started the countdown to that Sunday in March, to that barbecue, to those words Tyler would say in front of all his friends, because I knew he would do it. I knew exactly what he would say, and I knew exactly what I would do after. There were less than 18 hours left until Monday, until 9:14 in the morning, until the call from the bank, and Tyler had no idea what was about to happen. What I heard that early morning of February 23rd was this, word for word, etched into my memory as if someone had carved it with fire. "Your mom is so naive," Tiffany said between laughs. "She thinks you're actually going to get a stable job someday." And Tyler answered. My own son answered. "I don't need to get anything. She has savings. She has that account she inherited from her mother. It's like $50,000. When she runs out of what she has now, we'll use that. We will use, as if that money belonged to both of them, as if the 30 years I worked to save every penny belonged to them." But wait, because what came next was worse. "And what if she doesn't want to give it to you?" Tiffany asked. Tyler laughed, a dry laugh I had never heard from him. "She's my mother. She'll give me whatever. I just have to make her feel guilty, make her believe I'm depressed, that life is hard, that the economy is bad. You know, the usual." The usual. I stood there in the hallway, barefoot in my old cotton nightgown, feeling the cold floor piercing my feet. listening to how my son, the baby I had carried in my womb for 9 months, the boy I had raised alone since he was 2, was planning to manipulate me, rob me. Do you know what I did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I went back to my room in silence. I got under the covers and I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. But something changed in me that night. Something hardened, like water turning into ice. The next morning, Friday, February 24th, I got up at 7, like always. I made breakfast, like always. I poured coffee for Tyler, like always. But inside I was calculating, thinking, planning. Tyler sat at the kitchen table. "Good morning, Mom," he said with that smile, which I now knew was fake. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well, sweetheart," I replied, and I placed the plate of toast with jam in front of him, the kind he liked since he was a boy. He ate. I watched him, and I thought, you don't know what's coming yet. But I let time pass. I let him get confident. I let him believe that everything was the same. Because what Tyler didn't know was that I wasn't the naive woman he thought I was. I had survived a husband who abandoned me with a 2-year-old baby. I had worked double shifts for 20 years to give him everything he needed. I had built a life from scratch, and I wasn't going to let them take the little I had left. The days passed. 1 week, 2 weeks, a month. Actually, let me rephrase that. They didn't just pass. I counted them, each one, because I was waiting for the perfect moment. During that time, things got worse, and here is where I need you to understand something. Tyler didn't just become more manipulative. He became cruel, indifferent, cold. It was Saturday, April 8th, 2023, 4:22 in the afternoon. I was in the kitchen making dinner, chicken with rice, simple and cheap food. Tyler walked in with Tiffany. She was wearing designer jeans and a white blouse that probably cost what I spent on food for a month. "Mom, we need to talk," Tyler said. I turned toward him. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Tiffany and I have been thinking. We need more space. This apartment is too small for 3 people. I felt my chest tighten. More space. In my apartment. The one I paid for? "What do you suggest?" I asked with a calm voice. Always keeping calm. "Well," he said, looking at Tiffany, "we thought you could move into the small room, the one you use as storage. We would take your room. It's bigger. It has better light." The small room was a space 6 feet by 6 feet where I kept boxes of old photos and winter clothes. It had no window. A twin mattress barely fit. "You want me to sleep in the storage room?" I asked. Still calm, still controlled. "It's not a storage room, Mom. It's a room, and it will only be temporary until we get our own place." Temporary. The same word he had used 3 years earlier. I looked at Tiffany. She stared back at me, cold, indifferent, as if I were a piece of furniture they were moving. "And what if I say no?" I asked. Tyler sighed. That sigh of annoyance you reserve for when someone is being difficult for no reason. "Mom, don't be dramatic. It's just a room. It's not a big deal. Asking your 61-year-old mother to sleep in a windowless storage closet isn't a big deal." But you know what I said. You know what I did. "Okay, I'll move tomorrow." Because I needed them to keep getting confident. I needed them to believe they could do whatever they wanted with me. That night, I slept in the storage room for the first time, on an old mattress that smelled of dampness, among boxes of memories from a life that seemed to have belonged to someone else. I could hear Tyler and Tiffany laughing in my room, in my bed, using my closet. And I cried. I cried until I had no tears left. But when the sun came up, I wiped my face, I stood up, and I continued with my plan. More weeks passed, and with every week, Tyler and Tiffany became more inconsiderate, more cruel, more sure that I would never do anything. One day I arrived from the supermarket carrying 5 heavy bags. I walked up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. I entered the apartment sweating, my hands red from the weight. Tyler was sitting on the sofa playing video games. Tiffany was next to him, looking at her phone. "Can you help me put away the groceries?" I asked. Tyler didn't even look up. "Not right now, Mom. I'm in the middle of a game." I put everything away, alone, while they stayed right there, without moving, without offering. Another day. It was Tuesday, May 16th. It was 9 at night. I got sick. A bad flu with a fever of 102. I stayed in bed in that little windowless room, coughing, shivering. Tyler came in once. Just once. "Mom, try not to make so much noise. Tiffany is trying to sleep." He didn't ask me how I was. He didn't offer water. He didn't bring medicine. He just asked me to cough more quietly. And I kept waiting. I kept counting the days. Because you know what? Sometimes a mother's love has a limit. And that limit was getting closer and closer. June arrived. July. August. Every month was the same. I paid for everything. I cleaned everything. I cooked for 2 people who barely spoke to me except to ask for things. My savings were running out. The bank account went down and down. From $12,000, it went to $8,000, then to $5,000, then to $2,300. And then September of 2023 arrived, and something happened that accelerated everything. It was Sunday, September 3rd, 11:30 in the morning. My phone rang, an unknown number. "Susan Miller?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is she. I'm calling from First National Bank. We have a record that you have a savings account inherited from Mrs. Mary Miller, your mother." "Yes," I answered, feeling goosebumps rise on my skin. "We need to update some information. Could you come to the bank this week?" "Of course." "What day?" "Is Tuesday at 10 okay?" "Perfect." When I hung up, Tyler was behind me. "Who was that?" "The bank," I said. "They need to update the data on Grandma's account." I saw his eyes light up. That account, the $50,000 he believed he could use whenever he wanted. "Is everything okay with the account?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Everything is perfect," I replied. "Just routine." But that was when it occurred to me. That was when the final plan took shape in my head. On Tuesday, I went to the bank. I spoke with the manager, a woman in her 40s named Brenda. I explained my situation, not everything, just what was necessary. "What do you need exactly?" she asked me. "I need to protect my money, and I need to send a message my son will never forget." Brenda looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I think I can help you." We spent 2 hours in that office, signing papers, making changes, preparing everything. When I left the bank, it was 12:43 in the afternoon. The sun was shining bright. It was hot. But I felt cold and determined. Now I just needed to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect stage. And that stage arrived 6 months later, when Tyler decided to host a barbecue, to invite his friends, to show off how well he lived in his mom's apartment, the apartment that I paid for, but that he treated as if it were his own. Sunday, March 17th, 2024. He chose the date. He chose the setting. He chose the witnesses. I just chose the consequence. There were less than 16 hours left until the call, until everything changed, until Tyler finally understood. But I need to go back. I need to tell you about the signs I ignored, the signs I should have seen much earlier. Because when I look back now, I realize that Tyler was showing me who he really was the whole time, and I chose not to see it. The first sign came when he was 16. It was Friday, June 11th, 2004, 8:30 at night. I got home from work and found my jewelry box open on my bed. A ring was missing. The engagement ring my mother had given me before dying, white gold with a small diamond. It wasn't worth a fortune, but it was the only thing I had left of her. "Tyler," I called, "have you seen my ring?" He came out of his room. "What ring, Mom?" "Grandma's ring. It was in my jewelry box." He shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe you lost it." 2 days later, I found a receipt in his backpack. A pawn shop. $300. The date was Friday, the same day the ring disappeared. When I confronted him, he cried, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I needed the money for school, for an important project. I didn't know what to do. Please forgive me." And I forgave him. I went to the pawn shop, paid $450 to get it back, and never mentioned it again. I should have seen it then. I should have understood. But a mother's love blinds you. It makes you invent excuses. It makes you believe it was just a mistake, just a moment of desperation. The second sign came 3 years later. Tyler was 19. He was a college student in graphic design. I paid his tuition, his books, his transportation, his food, everything. One Saturday, April 28, 2007, he came home at 3 in the morning, drunk, smelling of cigarettes and cheap cologne. I helped him to his bed. I took off his shoes. I put a glass of water on the nightstand. The next morning, I asked him where he had been. At a party, he said, with friends from the university. What friends? You've never told me about them. A sigh of annoyance. Do I have to tell you everything, Mom? I'm 19. I just want to know you're okay, I replied. I'm okay. Stop smothering me. Smothering me. That was the word he used, as if worrying about my son was a defect, a nuisance. But I let it go. Again. Do you know how many times I repeated that pattern? How many times I ignored the signs because I didn't want to see the truth? Because admitting that your son isn't the person you thought he was hurts more than anything else in the world. The third sign. This was worse. Much worse. Tyler was 24. He was living alone in a small apartment I had helped him rent. One day, Tuesday, February 14th, 2012, 6 in the afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. Susan Miller? Yes. This is the Vista View building. Your son, Tyler Miller, is 3 months behind on rent. You are listed as the guarantor. We need you to catch up, or we will have to start the eviction process. 3 months. $4,200. I didn't have it, but I got it. I worked overtime. I asked for an advance. I sold some things. When I gave the money to Tyler, do you know what he said? Thanks, Mom. I knew I could count on you. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't explain why he hadn't paid. He didn't promise to pay me back. Just, thanks, Mom. And I discovered later, 2 weeks later, that in those 3 months he didn't pay the rent, he had bought a new computer for $5,000 because he needed it for his work, because his was too old. He paid for the computer, but not the rent. I should have confronted him. I should have set limits, but I didn't. Sometimes we trust too much in those who don't deserve it. Has someone you loved ever disappointed you? Share your story in the comments. I want to read it and know that I'm not alone in this. The years passed. More signs, more excuses, more times I looked the other way, until we reached that October of 2021, when Tyler moved in with me. When I thought I would finally have the chance to be close to my son, to recover that relationship I felt we had lost. How naive I was. Actually, let me rephrase that. I wasn't naive. I was desperate. Desperate to believe my son still loved me, that he still cared, that I meant something more to him than a bank account with legs. And now we are back in March of 2024, Sunday the 17th, the day of the barbecue. Less than 12 hours remained until Monday, until 9:14 in the morning. Let me tell you what happened that Sunday morning, before the barbecue, before Tyler's words, before everything exploded. I got up at 7:18. Like always, the sun was just starting to come through the small window in the hallway. My little room didn't have windows, remember? So I went out to feel a bit of natural light. Tyler and Tiffany were sleeping. I could hear them snoring softly from my old room. I went to the kitchen. I made coffee, toast, strawberry jam. At 8:30, Tiffany came out of the room. She was wearing a pink silk pajama set, expensive brand. Perfect hair. Makeup from the night before slightly smudged under her eyes. "Good morning," I said. "Coffee?" She looked at me as if I had just offered her poison. "I don't drink drip coffee, Susan. It hurts my stomach." "Don't you have an espresso machine?" "No," I replied. "I only have this." She sighed, then nothing. She sat at the kitchen table and started looking at her phone. I continued making breakfast. For myself, because apparently she didn't want anything I could offer. At 9, Tyler arrived. "Good morning," he said without looking at me. "Did you buy everything for the barbecue?" "Yes," I replied. "I bought the meat yesterday, and the salads, and the buns." "How much was it?" $700. He raised his eyebrows. "700? Wasn't that a lot?" "6 people are coming, Tyler. We have to have enough." "Yeah, well, I hope it lasts because I don't have money to buy more." Of course he didn't. He never had money. But he had money to buy Tiffany those new gold earrings I saw in her ears. He had money to go out to expensive restaurants on Friday nights. He had money for everything, except to help his mother. The barbecue was planned for 2 in the afternoon. Tyler's friends started arriving at 2:15. 3 young couples, all dressed in brand-name clothes, all laughing and talking loudly. I had spent the morning cleaning, preparing salads, organizing the patio, setting up chairs, putting on music. When the first couple arrived, do you know who greeted them? Tiffany, with that perfect smile. "Welcome to our home," she said. Our home, as if she paid a single penny. I stayed in the kitchen, finishing the last details, listening to how Tiffany showed them the apartment. "This is the dining room. This is our bedroom. Look what a nice view." Not once did she mention it was my house, that I lived there, that I existed. By 2:30, everyone was on the patio. Tyler started grilling the meat. The friends drank beer, laughed, told stories, and I served. I brought more bread, more napkins, more drinks, like an invisible waitress in my own house. At one point, one of the girls asked me, "And who are you?" "I'm Susan," I replied, "Tyler's mother." "Oh," she said, "I hadn't seen you. I thought you were someone Tyler had hired to help." Someone he had hired to help in my own house. I smiled. "I'm just helping," I said. But you know what? In that moment, something inside me broke. Or rather, that last piece of hope that remained that Tyler saw me as his mother broke. Because even in front of his friends, even when he could have introduced me with pride, he decided to leave me invisible. And then the moment arrived. 2:37 in the afternoon. I was serving more salad when I heard one of Tyler's friends ask, "And who is the lady serving?" And that was when Tyler said those words that had been building up for 3 years, during a whole lifetime of ignored signs. "Mom is just one of those dramatic old women who doesn't understand anything." Everyone laughed. And I stood there with the salad bowl in my hands, feeling how every laugh was a stab wound. But I didn't cry. You already know I didn't cry. I stood up, I said thank you, and I left. Only 19 hours and 37 minutes remained until Tyler received that call, and every second that passed, I felt more at peace with what was coming. After leaving the barbecue, I drove to that empty parking lot, the same one where I had cried so many times before. I stayed there for exactly 43 minutes, crying, shaking, letting all the pain out. But at 3:27 in the afternoon, something changed. I dried my tears. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, and I saw a different woman. A woman who was no longer going to allow more humiliations. I took out my phone. I dialed a number I had saved for months. The phone rang 3 times. "Susan?" Brenda, the bank manager, answered. "Everything okay?" "Everything is perfect," I replied. "Tomorrow at 9 o'clock sharp. Proceed with everything we talked about." "Are you sure?" "Once we do this, there is no turning back. I am completely sure." I hung up. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, I felt in control of my own life. I returned to the apartment at 4:12 in the afternoon. The barbecue was still in full swing. I could hear the laughter from the parking lot. I went up the stairs, I opened the door, and no one noticed I had returned. I went directly to my little room. I closed the door, and I started to pack. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes for a week, important documents, some photos, my mother's ring that I had recovered from the pawn shop all those years ago. While I packed, I listened to the voices outside. Tyler's voice telling a funny story, Tiffany's laugh, shrill and fake, the friends' applause, and in that moment I thought, tomorrow, none of you will be laughing. At 6:40 in the evening, the guests began to leave. I heard the goodbyes, the thank yous. What a nice house you have. Everything was so delicious. See you soon. When everyone left, I came out of my room. Tyler and Tiffany were in the living room. He was on the sofa. She was lying with her head in his lap, both looking at their phones and laughing at something. They didn't even look up when I entered. I went to the kitchen. The dirty dishes were piled in the sink. The trash was overflowing. The floor was full of crumbs and used napkins. The whole disaster of 6 hours of partying. I took a deep breath and I started to clean. One last time. Because after tomorrow, this would no longer be my problem. But then something happened. Something that almost made me doubt. Almost. Tyler came into the kitchen. It was 7:08 at night. He looked at me for a long moment. And for a second, just a second, I thought he was going to apologize. I thought maybe he had realized what he had said, how he had humiliated me. "Mom," he said. I stopped washing the dishes. I turned toward him, my heart beating fast, waiting for those 2 words I needed to hear so much. "I'm sorry." "Are there any more beers in the fridge?" he asked. And there died that last hope. "No," I replied. "They're gone." He sighed, annoyed. "I'll have to go buy some then." He left, just like that, without even looking at me. And I continued washing dishes. But now with a smile. Because that moment when I thought maybe there was still some humanity in my son, I discovered there wasn't. That moment sealed his fate. I finished cleaning at 9:34 at night. Everything was spotless, like always, because I always left everything spotless. I always made sure they were comfortable, that they lacked nothing. That night, Tyler and Tiffany went out at 10:12. I heard when they closed the door. "Let's go to that new bar," Tiffany said, "the one with the expensive cocktails." Expensive cocktails. But they didn't have money to help me with the rent. I stayed alone in the apartment, in that windowless room, lying on that old mattress, and I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves, not from fear, but from anticipation, because I knew that at 9:14 in the morning on Monday, in less than 11 hours, everything was going to change. I checked my phone. There was a message from Brenda sent at 9:45. "Everything ready for tomorrow. The lawyer will also be present. Do we confirm that Tyler will arrive at the bank at 9:14? "Confirmed," I wrote. "He will be there." How was I so sure? Because I had made sure myself that he would be there, but I'll explain that in a moment. Tyler and Tiffany returned at 2:17 in the morning on Monday, drunk, loud. I heard them stumbling in the hallway, laughing. "Shh," Tiffany said between laughs. "You're going to wake your mom." "It doesn't matter," Tyler replied. "She never says anything. She never says anything." He was right. I never said anything. But tomorrow I wouldn't need to say anything either. Other people would speak for me. I stayed awake until I heard their snoring, until I was sure they were sleeping deeply. Then I got up. It was 3:42 in the morning. I slipped out of my room in silence. I went to the kitchen. I made coffee. I sat at the table, and I waited for the sun to come up. While I waited, I thought about everything, about all the years, about all the sacrifices, about all the times I had swallowed my pride, my pain, my disappointment. I thought about the day Tyler was born, September 22nd, 1993, 4:30 in the morning, after 18 hours of labor, when they put him in my arms and I swore I would do anything for him, that I would protect him, that I would give him everything. And I had done it. I had given him everything, absolutely everything, my time, my money, my life. And what had I received in return? Humiliation? Indifference? Cruelty? but no more. After today, everything would be different. The sun started to rise at 6:18 in the morning. I watched how the light slowly entered through the windows, illuminating that apartment that had been my home for 8 years, the apartment that would no longer be my problem. At 7:30, I made breakfast, like always: toast, jam, coffee, orange juice. Tyler came out of the room at 8:03. He had messy hair, puffy eyes, obvious hangover. "Good morning," I said. He grunted something that sounded like a greeting. "I made you breakfast." He sat down. He ate, without saying thank you, without looking at me. At 8:25, while he was chewing his second piece of toast, my phone rang. A private number. I had programmed it myself the week before. I answered, acting surprised. "Hello, Mrs. Susan Miller," said a male voice. It was Mr. Sterling, the bank's lawyer. We were following the script we had prepared. "Yes, this is she." "I'm calling from First National Bank. We have an urgent problem with your account. We need you to come in this morning." "What kind of problem?" I asked loudly, loud enough for Tyler to hear. I saw how he lifted his head, how his eyes focused. The word account always captured his attention. "We cannot give details over the phone, ma'am, but it is urgent. Can you come at 9? "I have things to do today," I replied. "Ma'am, it is very important. It concerns the account inherited from your mother, the $50,000. Tyler stopped chewing. His eyes widened. "All right," I said. "I'll be there." I hung up. I acted worried. I put my hand to my forehead. "What happened?" Tyler asked, finally showing interest in something I was doing. "The bank. They say there is a problem with Grandma's account." "What kind of problem?" "I don't know." They didn't want to say over the phone. I saw how his brain was working, calculating, worrying. Not for me, but for that money he believed would someday be his. "Do you want me to go with you?" he asked. And there it was, just as I had planned. "Would you do that?" I asked, feigning surprise, feigning gratitude. "Of course, Mom. That's what I'm here for." That's what I'm here for. What a liar. He was there for the money, only for the money. But I knew it, and now he was walking directly into the trap. We left the apartment at 8:52. We took a taxi. The bank was 15 minutes away. During the ride, Tyler was nervous. "Do you think it's something serious?" he asked. "I don't know," I replied. "I hope not." "That account is important," he said. "It's your security, your future." Your security. What a joke. He cared about my security only because he wanted that money for himself. We arrived at the bank at 9:11, 3 minutes before the agreed time. We entered. The air conditioning was strong. It smelled of paper and money. The employees moved behind their desks. Everything normal, everything calm. But in 3 minutes, nothing would be calm. I approached the receptionist. "Susan Miller, I have an appointment at 9. She checked her computer, nodded. "One moment, please." She called on the internal phone. Then she looked at us. "The manager will see you in a moment. Please, take a seat." Tyler and I sat in some black leather chairs. He was checking his phone. I watched the clock on the wall. 9:12, 9:13, and then, at 9:14 on the dot, Brenda appeared. "Mrs. Miller," she said with a professional smile. "Come in, please." She looked at Tyler. "The gentleman is my son," I said. "Tyler." "Perfect. He needs to be present as well. Follow me, please." We walked down a hallway. We passed several offices until we reached a conference room at the back. And when Brenda opened that door, when Tyler saw who was inside waiting for us, his face changed. Because what he didn't know was that this meeting wasn't about problems with the account. It was about consequences, and he was about to learn them all. Inside the conference room, 3 people were waiting. Brenda, the manager, Mr. Sterling, a lawyer of about 50 in a gray suit, and a young woman with a recorder on the table. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller," Mr. Sterling said. "Please, take a seat." Tyler looked at me confused. "What is all this?" he whispered. "Sit down, sweetheart," I replied calmly. "You'll find out." We sat down, me on the side of the table where they were, Tyler across from me. I could see how his hands were starting to sweat, how his eyes went from one person to another, looking for answers. "Mr. Tyler Miller," began Mr. Sterling, "correct?" "Yes," Tyler replied. "What is happening?" "What is happening," said Brenda, "is that your mother requested this meeting exactly 6 months ago, on September 17th, 2023, to address a delicate situation involving her personal finances and her relationship with you." Tyler blinked. "What? Mom, what are they talking about?" I said nothing. I just looked at him, with that calm I had practiced for months, that dignity under fire I had perfected. "Your mother," Mr. Sterling continued, "she has been documenting certain behaviors and actions that led her to make important decisions regarding her assets, decisions that directly affect you." Now Tyler looked scared. "What decisions?" Brenda opened a blue folder. "Let's start at the beginning. Mrs. Miller, could you confirm for the record that everything you will present today is true?" "I confirm it," I replied. She took out the first document. "This is the lease agreement for the apartment located at 345 Oak Creek Drive in the name of Susan Miller. Monthly payments of $1,400. Is that correct?" "Correct," I said. "And who has been paying this rent for the last 3 years and 5 months?" "I have, every month without exception." "Tyler, do you live in that apartment?" Mr. Sterling asked. "Yes," Tyler replied, "but I don't understand what this has to do with anything." "Have you contributed financially to the rent during these 3 years and 5 months?" I have given money to my mom to help." Brenda took out another document. "These are Mrs. Miller's bank statements for the last 3 years. Here we can see all the deposits received. During the first year, you deposited $200 monthly for 8 months. Then you reduced it to $100 monthly for 5 months. And in the last 24 months, you have not deposited a single dollar. Is this correct?" Tyler swallowed hard. I've been in a difficult situation." "I understand," said Mr. Sterling. "But during that same period, according to the records your mother provided, you made the following purchases: a MacBook Pro for $5,200, an iPhone for $3,800, designer clothes at various stores for a total of $6,000, dinners at expensive restaurants for approximately $2,000 a month. Correct?" Tyler's face turned red. "Were you investigating me?" he asked me. "I didn't investigate you," I replied calmly. "I just kept the receipts you left thrown all over the house." "This is ridiculous," Tyler said, standing up. "I don't have to listen to this." "Sit down, Mr. Miller," Mr. Sterling said with a firm voice. "We haven't finished yet, and what is coming is the part you really need to hear." Tyler remained standing for a moment, breathing heavily. Then he sat down slowly. "While I tell you all this, I wonder where you might be listening from. Write the name of your city in the comments. I would love to know how far my words reach, how far this story reaches, a story that hurts me so much to tell, but that I need to share." "Now comes the hard part," I said, "the part that really broke my heart." Brenda took out a manila envelope. Inside were several pages. "Transcripts? What is that?" Tyler asked. "It's a conversation," I replied. "A conversation you had with Tiffany on February 23rd, 2023, at 3 in the morning." I saw how he went pale, how his hands gripped the edge of the table. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Then let me refresh your memory," I replied, and I nodded toward Brenda. She began to read. Tiffany's voice. "Your mom is so naive. She thinks you're actually going to get a stable job someday." Tyler's voice. "I don't need to get anything. She has savings. She has that account she inherited from her mother. It's like $50,000. When she runs out of what she has now, we'll use that." Tyler sat frozen, completely motionless. "Do you want me to continue?" Brenda asked. "Please," I replied. Tiffany's voice. "And what if she doesn't want to give it to you?" Tyler's voice. "She's my mother. She'll give me whatever. I just have to make her feel guilty, make her believe I'm depressed, that life is hard, that the economy is bad. You know, the usual." Each word fell like a stone in the room, heavy, definitive, irrevocable. That's not That's not what I meant, Tyler whispered. No, I asked. Then what exactly did you mean when you said you just had to manipulate me? When you said the usual, as if it were something you had done multiple times? Mom, I was drunk. I was talking nonsense. Were you drunk at 3 in the morning on a Thursday? I asked. Because I was completely sober when I heard you. Completely awake. Completely shattered. Mr. Sterling took out more documents. But there is more, Mr. Miller. Much more. Your mother also documented multiple conversations between you and Miss Tiffany Davis. Conversations where you specifically planned how to gain access to your mother's finances. That's not true, Tyler said, but his voice no longer sounded convincing. Brenda read another transcript, this one from June 8, 2023. 11 o'clock at night, Tiffany's voice. We should convince her to put your name on the account. That way, when she's gone, everything will be yours automatically. Tyler's voice. Not a bad idea, but we have to be careful. We can't be too obvious. When she's gone. Those were your words, as if you were waiting for me to die to keep my money. No, Mom, it wasn't like that. You don't understand. What is it that I don't understand, Tyler? What exactly do I not understand? You don't know how hard it's been for me, he said. The pressure, the stress, I needed to vent to someone. Vent? Planning to rob me is venting? I wasn't going to rob you. It's just that I knew eventually you would help me. I helped you for 3 years and 5 months, I replied. I gave you a roof, food. I paid for everything while you paid nothing. And you still expected more? I am your son. You are supposed to take care of me. And there it was, that phrase that sums it all up, that phrase that showed exactly who he really was. You are my son, I repeated. You are 31 years old, Tyler, 31 years old. Until when am I supposed to take care of you? Until I have nothing left? Until I die in that windowless storage room where you made me sleep? That was your idea, he said. You accepted. Do you know what was the worst part? I asked, raising my voice for the first time. It wasn't that you asked me for that room. It wasn't that you treated me like a servant. It wasn't even that you planned to rob me. The worst part was yesterday. Yesterday at that barbecue that I paid for, with the food that I bought, in the house that I maintain. When you called me a dramatic old woman in front of all your friends, it was a joke, Mom, a joke. Everyone laughed. Everyone looked at me like I was trash, and you smiled. You were proud to humiliate me. Tears began to fall down my cheeks, but I didn't stop them. Not this time. Because this wasn't weakness. This was years of pain finally coming out. I spent my entire life sacrificing for you. Your father left us when you were 2. Do you remember? No, of course not. You were too small. But I remember. I remember how I was left alone with a baby. No money, no help. I worked 2 jobs for 10 years. 2 jobs so you wouldn't lack anything. So you could go to college. So you had opportunities I never had. Tyler looked down without answering. And when you needed me, when you lost your job, I opened my house. I opened my heart. I gave you everything. Again. Because that is what mothers do. That is what love does. And you took that love and spat on it. You trampled it. You turned it into a tool to manipulate me. I didn't know what else to do, Tyler whispered. You could have been honest. You could have treated me with respect, with dignity. You could have seen me as your mother and not as a walking bank. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. Mrs. Miller, do you want to proceed with the next part? I nodded. Yes. Let him know everything. Brenda took out more documents. Mr. Tyler Miller, your mother has made the following legal decisions. First, the account inherited from Mrs. Mary Miller for the amount of $52,300 has been transferred to an irrevocable trust in the name of Susan Miller. You do not have, nor will you ever have, access to those funds. Tyler's face fell completely apart. Second, Brenda continued, the apartment where you currently reside has been legally vacated. The lease ends today, Monday, March 18th at 6 in the evening. You have until that time to remove your belongings. What? Tyler shouted. You're kicking me out? I am freeing you, I replied. I am freeing you from this dramatic old mother who understands nothing. Now you will be able to live your life without my annoying presence. You can't do this. It's already done. The papers are signed. Everything is legal. And I'm supposed to go to the street? You are 31 years old, have a university degree, 2 functional hands. I am sure you will find something. Tyler stood up violently. The chair fell backward. You are a selfish witch, he shouted. My whole life you made me feel guilty for existing. Guilty for existing, I repeated incredulously. I loved you. I gave you everything. You suffocated me, always with your martyr attitude. Look at everything I do for you. Look how much I sacrifice, as if I had asked you to do something. And there it was, the final truth, the poison that had been stored for years, finally coming out. You know what, Tyler? I said, standing up too. I kept my voice calm. I kept my dignity. You're right. You didn't ask me to give you life. But I chose to give it to you. I chose to love you. I chose to sacrifice myself. And now I choose to stop doing it. This isn't going to stay like this, he threatened. I'm going to fight this legally. Mr. Sterling intervened. Mr. Miller, everything is in order. Your mother has absolute legal right over her property and her finances. You don't have a case. Tyler looked at me with eyes full of hate. A hate that was probably always there, but that I had refused to see. You will regret this, he said. No, Tyler, I replied. The only thing I regret is having waited so long to do it. He left the room, slamming the door. The sound resonated in the walls, in my chest, in my soul. And then I collapsed. There, in that bank conference room, surrounded by strangers, I finally allowed myself to break completely. But even while I cried, even while the pain pierced through me, I knew I had done the right thing. Because sometimes love means letting go. It means saying enough. It means choosing yourself even if it hurts more than anything else in the world. And I had finally chosen myself. Brenda handed me a tissue. Take your time, Mrs. Miller, she said with a kind voice. I cried for 6 full minutes. 6 minutes of 31 years of pain coming out, of broken hopes, of destroyed dreams, of a mother's love that was never enough because the person receiving it didn't know how to value it. When I could finally breathe again, Mr. Sterling spoke. Mrs. Miller, there is something else we need to discuss, something we discovered during the investigation you requested. I looked up. What thing? He exchanged a look with Brenda. It has to do with Miss Tiffany Davis. What about her? I asked. Brenda opened another folder. This one was red. Following your instructions, we hired a private investigator 3 months ago to verify certain information you suspected. My heart started to beat faster. And Tiffany Davis is 32 years old, 1 year older than Tyler, although she tells him she is 27. She is married. What? Married for 6 years to a man named Jason Reynolds. They live in an apartment 20 miles from here. He works at an oil company. He earns very well. I don't understand, I whispered. Mr. Sterling continued. Tiffany has a pattern. She seeks out vulnerable men, preferably ones who live with their mothers or elderly relatives. She establishes relationships with them. She moves into the houses. And then, little by little, she manipulates them to gain access to family finances. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. Does Tyler know she is married? We don't think so. According to our investigation, Tiffany has done this at least 3 times before. Always the same pattern, always ending when she gets what she wants or when she is discovered. And what did she want from us? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. The $50,000 in your account. According to the text messages we were able to recover, she and her husband have gambling debts, almost $70,000. They needed that money desperately. Tyler wasn't just using me. They were using him, too. Do you know what was the worst part of that moment? It wasn't discovering that Tiffany was a scammer. It was realizing that a part of me still wanted to protect Tyler, still wanted to run and warn him, save him. But I couldn't anymore. I shouldn't anymore. What do I do with this information? I asked. Mr. Sterling put a white envelope on the table. Here is all the evidence: photos, documents, marriage records, everything. What you do with this is your decision. You can give it to Tyler, you can give it to the police, or you can keep it. I took it with trembling hands. Thank you. There is something else, said Brenda. According to our records, Tiffany planned to convince Tyler to put her as the beneficiary of his inheritance, of everything you would eventually leave him. A bitter laugh came out of my throat. How convenient that there is nothing left to inherit. Exactly, said Mr. Sterling. I sat there, processing everything. Tyler had been manipulated, yes, but he had also chosen to manipulate me. He had chosen to treat me badly. He had chosen to humiliate me. Tiffany didn't force him to say those words at the barbecue. That came from him. How much time do I have before I have to leave the apartment? I asked. Until 6 this evening, Brenda replied. But don't worry, we have already arranged everything. You have a new apartment waiting for you. Smaller, but completely yours. Paid for a full year with the money from the trust, as you requested. A year? I nodded. Yes. A year to reorganize my life, to heal, to learn to live without the weight of a son who never valued me. I left the bank at 10:32 in the morning. The sun shone bright. It was hot. Life continued normally for everyone else, but for me, everything had changed. I walked for an hour, aimlessly, just walking, thinking, feeling, and then my phone rang. It was Tyler. I didn't answer. He called again. Once, twice, 5 times. Finally, I answered. What do you want? I need to talk to you, he said. His voice sounded different, softer, almost desperate. We already talked. Please, Mom, just give me 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I accepted. We met at a cafe 3 blocks from the bank. I arrived first. I sat at a table near the window. I ordered a tea I wasn't going to drink. Tyler arrived at 12:18. He had red eyes, a gaunt face. He sat in front of me. Thank you for coming, he said. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, waiting. Mom, he started, and he broke. He started to cry. There, in the middle of the cafe, my 31-year-old son was crying like a child. And you know what? I felt nothing, no compassion, no desire to comfort him, just emptiness. I'm so sorry, he sobbed. You're right, about everything. I was a terrible son, a terrible human being. Yes, I replied, you were. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did, over and over again, for years. I was confused. Tiffany told me things. She made me believe that... Did Tiffany force you to call me a dramatic old woman, I asked? Did she force you to make me sleep in a storage room? Did she force you to plan to rob me? He looked down. No. Then don't talk to me about confusion. You made choices, bad choices, and now you face the consequences. Can we fix this, he asked. Please, I will do whatever. I will get a job. I will pay rent. I will be different. And here comes the hard part. The part where I almost gave in. Because listening to your son beg for forgiveness activates something primitive in a mother, something that wants to forgive, that wants to believe. But then I remembered his words from that early morning, the usual, as if manipulating me was routine. I remembered his laugh when he called me a dramatic old woman. I remembered 3 years and 5 months of feeling invisible in my own house. And I remembered something more important. I remembered that I deserved better. No, Tyler, I said. We can't fix this. Mom, listen to me closely because I'm only going to say this once. I loved you with every fiber of my being. I sacrificed my happiness, my comfort, my dreams, all for you. And you took that love and turned it into weakness, into something you could exploit. I was young, stupid. You are 31. You aren't young. You are an adult, and adults are responsible for their actions. Please, give me another chance. I had to be strong, stronger than I had been in my entire life, because a part of me, that maternal part that never dies, wanted to say yes, wanted to hug him, wanted to forgive him. But the other part, the part that had learned to value herself, said no. You already had your chance, I replied. You had 3 years and 5 months of chances. You wasted them all. I got up to leave. Wait, he said, grabbing my hand. There is something you need to know about Tiffany. I already know, I replied. I know she is married. I know she has debts. I know she was using me, and I know she was using you. His face turned white. How? Because I am not the naive old woman you thought I was. Because while you were planning to rob me, I was 3 steps ahead. I pulled my hand from his. Goodbye, Tyler. I left the cafe, I crossed the street, and I didn't look back. But he followed me. Mom, he shouted, please. People on the street looked at us. A scene, a public drama, exactly what I always tried to avoid. Go away, Tyler, I said without stopping. I can't. You are my mother. You are all I have. And you should have thought of that before humiliating me, before using me, before planning to rob me. I made mistakes, but I'm still your son. I stopped. I turned toward him. And here is where I need you to understand something, where I need anyone listening to this to understand something. Yes, I said, you are my son, and you always will be. But being my son does not give you the right to mistreat me. It doesn't give you the right to use me. It doesn't give you the right to disrespect me. Mom, he said, a mother's love is not infinite when it is one-sided. Love requires reciprocity. It requires respect. And you didn't give me either. Tears were falling down his face, falling down his cheeks, off his chin, hitting the hot pavement. And for the first time in my life, I didn't dry them. I didn't comfort him. I didn't tell him everything would be okay. Because it wouldn't be okay. Not for a while. Maybe never. You have until 6 in the evening to get your things out of the apartment, I said. After that, the locks will be changed. If you leave anything, I will donate it. Where am I supposed to go? That is your responsibility, not mine, not anymore. This is going to destroy you, he said. You're going to be alone, without me, without anyone. And do you know what? He was right. Loneliness awaited me. Empty nights, days without purpose, all that was coming. But something else was coming too. Peace was coming. Dignity was coming. The opportunity to rediscover myself was coming. To live for me. To be Susan Miller, not just Tyler's mom. I prefer to be alone with dignity than accompanied with humiliation, I replied. And I left. This time without looking back. This time without stopping, even though I heard his screams. Even though I heard his crying. I took a taxi. I gave the address of my new apartment. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. Are you okay, ma'am? I will be, I replied. The trip lasted 22 minutes. 22 minutes of looking out the window, of seeing the city where I had spent my whole life, of thinking about everything I had lost and everything I was gaining. The new apartment was small. 1 bedroom, a living dining room, American-style kitchen, full bath, 3rd floor, overlooking a park. When I entered, at 1:42 in the afternoon, I stood in the middle of the empty living room. No furniture yet, just space. Space that was completely mine. And for the first time in 3 years and 5 months, I breathed without weight in my chest. Tomorrow would bring uncertainty. Tomorrow would bring pain. Tomorrow, the real process of healing would come. But today, in this moment, I had taken the hardest step. I had chosen myself. And that, after so much time being last on my own list of priorities, felt like victory, even if it hurt like defeat. 4 hours and 18 minutes remained until 6 in the evening, until the locks changed, until that part of my life officially ended. And what would come next, what Tyler would do, what Tiffany would do, would no longer be my problem, because I was finally free. I stayed in that empty apartment for 2 hours, just sitting on the floor, looking at the white walls, listening to the silence, a silence that wasn't heavy, it was liberating. At 3:50 in the afternoon, my phone vibrated, a text message from an unknown number. "You are a selfish bitch. Hope you rot alone." It was Tiffany. Of course. Tyler had told her everything. I blocked the number without replying. Her words no longer had power over me. 5 minutes later, another message, another number. "Tyler is devastated because of you. Is that how you treat your only son? What kind of mother are you?" This one came from a number I recognized, Tiffany's sister. Or maybe it was her with another phone. It didn't matter. I blocked that number too. But the messages kept coming. Different numbers, same poison. "Tyler told me you were always controlling. Now I understand why his dad left you." That one hurt. Not because it was true, but because it touched an old wound. One that had healed, but whose scar was still sensitive. But I didn't reply. I wasn't going to give them that power. At 4:28, I received a call, this time from Tyler. I answered, but I didn't speak. I just listened. "Mom." It was his voice, but it sounded weird, too calm, too controlled. "Tiffany is here with me. She wants to talk to you." "I'm not interested," I replied. "Just listen to her, please. She can explain everything." "There is nothing to explain, Tyler." And I hung up. But something about that call unsettled me. Something in his tone, in his way of speaking. I called Brenda. She answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Miller, is everything okay?" "I'm not sure," I replied. "Tyler just called. He sounded strange. Did you say the locks on the apartment would be changed at 6? "Exactly. The locksmith is already on his way. He will arrive at 5:30. "Can he get there earlier? I have a bad feeling." "Let me see what I can do." 5 minutes later, she called me back. "The locksmith can be there in 20 minutes. But Mrs. Miller, technically it is still Tyler's residence until 6. If he is inside when the locksmith arrives, there could be problems." "I know, but I still need you to go. Do you want me to send security too?" And that was when I realized something. I was afraid. Afraid of my own son, of what he could do, cornered, desperate. "Yes," I replied, "send security." I took a taxi back to the old apartment. I don't know why. Something told me I needed to be there. That something was going to happen. I arrived at 5:07 in the afternoon, 53 minutes before the deadline. Tyler's car was parked outside. The apartment windows were open. I could hear voices, screams. I went up the stairs. Every step was heavy. My heart beat loud in my ears. My hands sweated. When I reached the 3rd floor, the apartment door was open, and what I saw froze my blood. The apartment was destroyed, completely destroyed. Furniture overturned, sofa cushions ripped. The photos that hung on the walls were on the floor, frames broken. The kitchen table was on its side, dishes shattered on the floor. And in the middle of all that chaos were Tyler and Tiffany, fighting, screaming at each other. "What did you do?" Tyler was screaming. "What did you tell my mother?" "I didn't do anything," Tiffany responded. "She's paranoid. She made everything up." "That bank had information about you, about your husband." Tiffany froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Are you married?" Tyler shouted. "All this time you've been married?" "That's ridiculous." "Then tell me why there is a marriage record, photos, documents." Tiffany changed her expression from defensive to cold, calculating. "Yes," she said, "I'm married." "So what?" Tyler backed away as if he had been hit. "So what? So what? You've been with me for a year, living here, making plans, and you're married?" "The plans were always about the money, idiot. Did you really think I cared about you?" I saw something break in Tyler's face, how reality hit him. Finally. "You used all this," he whispered. "You used me to get to my mother's money." "Bingo," said Tiffany with a cruel smile. "But your dear mommy turned out to be smarter than you. Now there is no money, and there is no reason for me to be here." She grabbed her purse from the overturned sofa. She started walking toward the door, and she saw me. She stopped. We looked at each other. "You?" she said with poison in her voice. "You ruined everything." "I saved you from jail," I replied. "What you were doing is fraud. I could have reported you, but I didn't." "How generous," she said with sarcasm. "A saint." "I just want you to leave and leave my son alone." "Your son?" she laughed. "Your son is useless, a 31-year-old child who can't support himself. You raised him that way, dependent, weak." Her words hurt because there was truth in them. I had raised Tyler, giving him everything, without teaching him responsibility, without teaching him consequences. "Maybe," I replied, "but that is no longer your problem." Tiffany looked at me with contempt. She passed by me. Her cheap perfume filled the hallway, and she left. She went down the stairs, her heels clicking, moving away. And then only Tyler and I remained, in the middle of the destroyed apartment, in the middle of the rubble of everything our relationship had been. "She did it for money," Tyler said, voice broken. "It was all for money." "Yes," I replied. "She lied to me. She used me." "Yes." "How could you know? How did you know?" "Because I hired someone to investigate. Because I learned that when something seems too good to be true, it probably is." Tyler let himself fall onto the overturned sofa. He put his head in his hands. "I'm an idiot." "Yes," I repeated, "you are." He looked at me. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me go on with her?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me. Because you were so deep in your own lie that anything I said you would have thought was to control you." He knew I was right. I could see it in his eyes. "I lost everything," he whispered. "I lost you. I lost Tiffany. I lost the apartment. I have nothing." "You are 31 years old. You have health. You have an education. You have the opportunity to start over." "I don't know how." And here comes the part where I had to be stronger than ever, because I saw my broken son, vulnerable, asking for help. And every maternal instinct screamed to help him, to rescue him one more time. But I couldn't. I shouldn't. "You will have to learn alone," I said. "Mom, please, I have nowhere to go." "There are shelters, there are friends, there are options." "Are you telling me to sleep on the street?" "I am telling you that it is not my responsibility to save you, not this time." "I am your son," he shouted. "How can you be so cold?" "Cold?" I repeated. "Cold? For 3 years I gave you warmth, I gave you a roof, I gave you food, I gave you love. And how did you repay me? With humiliation, with plans to rob me, with indifference." I was confused. Tiffany manipulated me. "Tiffany didn't force you to call me a dramatic old woman. That was all you." He had no answer for that. "The locksmith is going to arrive soon," I said. "I suggest you take what you need." "And then?" "Then you start your life, away from me." At that moment, the locksmith arrived, a man of about 60 with a toolbox. Behind him came 2 security guards. "Mrs. Miller," said the locksmith, "shall we proceed?" "Yes," I replied, "but give him 15 minutes to get his things." Tyler looked at me. "Just 15 minutes?" "It's more than you deserve," I observed while he packed. Clothes in a suitcase, his computer, his phone, some books. He left everything else. The furniture I had bought, the appliances, the photos from when he was a boy. When he finished, when that suitcase was closed, he looked at me one last time. "Will you be able to forgive me someday?" he asked. And here is the truth I need you to understand. "I don't know," I replied. "Honestly, I don't know." His eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am sorry." "I'm sorry too," I said. "I'm sorry we came to this. I feel like your love had conditions. I feel like I was never enough." "You were enough. I was the problem." Finally, I thought, finally, he sees it. But it was too late. Some things can't be repaired once they are broken. "Go, Tyler," I said. "Please." He took his suitcase. He walked toward the door. He stopped in the frame. "I love you, Mom." "And I love you," I replied. "But love is not enough when there is no respect." He left. He went down the stairs, and this time, when I heard the sound of his steps moving away, I didn't cry. The locksmith changed the locks. The guards made sure everything was in order. At 6:14 in the evening, 8 minutes after the promised time, everything was finished. I stayed alone in the empty apartment, surrounded by the remains of a life that no longer existed. And I knew that tomorrow, the real work would come. The work of rebuilding myself, of learning to live without that weight, without that constant pain. But for now, in this moment, I only felt relief. Relief that it was finally over. 3 days passed. 3 days in my new apartment. 3 days of silence. Of waking up without hearing Tyler's complaints. Without having to cook for someone who never said thank you. Without feeling that constant weight in my chest. But it wasn't peace either. It was emptiness. A huge void I didn't know how to fill. Wednesday morning, it was 8:43. I received a call from Brenda. "Mrs. Miller, there is something you need to know. Tyler tried to access your account yesterday afternoon." "How?" I asked, feeling adrenaline rush through my veins. "He came to the bank. He said you had sent him, that he needed to withdraw money for a medical emergency of yours, that you were in the hospital. He presented false documents, a letter supposedly signed by you giving him authorization. Luckily, our security system detected the inconsistencies. We confronted him. He ran away." I closed my eyes. Even after everything, even after losing everything, he was still trying to rob me. "Are you going to report him?" I asked. "That depends on you. We have the cameras, the false documents. We have enough evidence to proceed legally. Document forgery and attempted fraud. They are serious crimes." And here is the question that kept me awake all that night. Do I report my own son? Do I send him to jail? Because that is what would happen. Mr. Sterling explained it to me when I went to the bank that same afternoon. With the evidence we have, we would be talking about 2 to 5 years in prison. 2 to 5 years. My son in jail. "I need to think about it," I said. "You have until Friday," Mr. Sterling replied. "After that, the bank will proceed autonomously. It is protocol when there is attempted fraud." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed staring at the ceiling of my new bedroom, the shadows cast by the streetlights, the distant sound of cars passing. And I thought about everything. About the baby Tyler had been, about the 5-year-old boy who used to climb into my bed during storms, about the teenager who hugged me when I came home tired from work. Where was he lost? At what moment did that sweet boy become the man who tried to rob me? Or was he always there, and I simply didn't want to see it? On Thursday at 3 in the afternoon, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize, but something told me to answer. It was a woman, older voice, tired. "Susan Miller?" she asked. "Yes." "This is Elena Davis, Tiffany's mother." I felt my whole body tense up. "What do you want?" "I need to talk to you. It's important. Can we meet?" "I have nothing to talk about with you or your daughter." "Please," she said. Her voice broke. "It's not about Tiffany. Well, yes, it is about her. But it's also about your son, about what they are planning." "Planning?" "Please, just half an hour. There is a cafe on Independence Street. Do you know the place?" Against all instinct, I accepted. We met an hour later. Elena Davis was a woman of about 70, thin, gray hair, deep wrinkles around her eyes. She wore simple clothes, nothing like her daughter's expensive style. She sat across from me. She ordered a tea. She wasn't going to drink either. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Tell me what you want." She took a deep breath. "My daughter is a con artist. I know you already know that. But what you maybe don't know is that this didn't start with you." "I know she has a record," I replied. "Not just a record. She has victims, 5 that I know of. older men, vulnerable families, always the same pattern, and it always ends badly. Why are you telling me this? Because this time is different. This time she found an accomplice, your son. Tyler is not a con artist. He is just a manipulated idiot. Elena shook her head. I wish it were so, but I heard a conversation 2 days ago between Tiffany and Tyler. They are planning revenge against you. I felt cold in my spine. Revenge how? They are going to sue you. They are going to say you threw them out on the street, that you mistreated them, that you have the money that legally belongs to Tyler as a son. They are going to try to annul everything you did at the bank. That has no legal basis. I know, and you know, but they are going to make a scandal. They are going to go to the media. They are going to invent stories. They are going to make your life impossible until you give in and give them money. Why are you warning me? I asked. She is your daughter. That's exactly why, she replied, her eyes filled with tears. Because I spent my whole life watching how she destroyed lives, how she hurt people, and I never did anything. I always protected her, always invented excuses, just like you did with your son. Her words hit me like a punch. But no more, she continued. I can't go on being an accomplice. Tiffany needs to face consequences, and your son too. What do you suggest I do? Defend yourself. Don't give in. And when they come with their lies, with their manipulations, stand firm. Elena took an envelope out of her purse. Here are recordings of the conversations between Tiffany and Tyler, of their plans. Use them if you need them. Why are you doing this? Because maybe if someone had stopped Tiffany 20 years ago, she wouldn't be who she is today. Maybe if I had been stronger, if I had set limits, things would be different. She handed me the envelope. Our hands touched briefly. 2 mothers, 2 different stories, but the same pain. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me. Just do what I never had the courage to do. Say enough. Elena left. She left money on the table for the tea neither of us had drunk, and I stayed there with that envelope, with that evidence, with that huge decision in front of me. That night, I listened to the recordings, and what I heard broke me into pieces. Tiffany's voice. She has to pay for ruining us. She has that money hidden. I know. We just need to pressure her correctly. Tyler's voice. And if it doesn't work? Tiffany. Then we destroy her. Socially, emotionally, we make everyone see her as the villain, as the cruel mother who abandoned her son. Tyler, I don't know if I can. Tiffany, do you prefer to stay on the street? Do you prefer to have nothing? She owes you this. She owes you for all the years she manipulated you, controlled you. And then I heard something that froze me to the bone. Tyler, you're right. She deserves it. I paused the recording. I repeated those words. She deserves it. My son, my baby, the boy I raised, the boy to whom I dedicated my life, believed I deserved to be destroyed. And here comes the question I asked you before, the question that still haunts me. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? Write it in the comments. I really want to know what you think. Because what I did on Friday, what I decided, changed everything, forever. I went to the bank. It was 9 a.m. Mr. Sterling and Brenda were waiting for me. I want to proceed with the charges, I said, against Tyler for attempted fraud. And I want you to listen to this. I played the recordings. The 3 of us listened in silence. When it finished, Mr. Sterling whistled softly. This is serious, very serious. Conspiracy for extortion, attempted fraud. With this evidence, we are talking about serious consequences. How serious? 3 to 7 years for Tyler. For Tiffany, with her record, it could be more. I need you to understand, I said, looking at Mr. Sterling, at Brenda, that this is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. He is my son, but I cannot continue being his victim. We understand, said Brenda, taking my hand. I signed the papers, all of them. The formal complaint, the authorization for the bank to proceed legally, everything. And when I put my signature on that last document, when the ink dried on the paper, I felt something strange. It wasn't relief. It wasn't pain. It was clarity. Clarity that sometimes love means letting go. It means allowing people to face the consequences of their actions, even when those people are your children. 2 days later, Sunday afternoon, I received a call from a police detective. "Mrs. Miller, this is Detective Ramirez. We wanted to inform you that Tyler Miller and Tiffany Davis were arrested this morning." I felt as if the air left my lungs. They are in custody. The preliminary hearing will be on Tuesday. As the complainant, you have the right to be present. "I won't go," I replied. "Are you sure?" "Completely." That night I received a message from Tyler's phone. "Mom, please, help me. I'm in jail. I can't be here. Please, I beg you, drop the charges." My fingers trembled over the keyboard. A part of me wanted to reply, wanted to run, wanted to save him. But the other part, the part that had learned to value herself, wrote a different response. "I'm sorry, Tyler, but this time you have to face the consequences of your actions. I love you. I will always love you, but I can't save you from yourself." I sent the message, and I blocked the number. The following weeks were a blur. Calls from lawyers, from journalists who somehow found out about the story, from people offering opinions I didn't ask for. Some called me a monster. What kind of mother reports her own son? Others called me brave. Finally, a mother who sets limits. But I didn't feel like a monster or brave. I felt empty, as if I had lost something I would never get back. A month later, in April, I received a letter. It came from the prison, from the detention center where Tyler awaited trial. I left it on the table for 3 days without opening it, looking at it, fearing what it said. Finally, on a Thursday night, I opened it. The handwriting was Tyler's, irregular, shaky. "Mom," it began, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to understand. But I need you to know something. You were right. About everything. I was a terrible son, a terrible human being, and it took me being here, in this place, away from everything, to finally see it. I spent my life blaming you, blaming the world, blaming anyone but myself. And when Tiffany appeared, when she told me you were the problem, I wanted to believe it, because it was easier than admitting I was the problem. I lost everything, my freedom, my dignity, but the worst is that I lost you. And I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I ask you this, not for me, but for you. Forgive me. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe never, but someday when you are ready, forgive me, not to free me, but to free you. I love you, Mom, and I'm sorry, more than words can express. Tyler." I cried when I finished reading. I cried for an hour. I cried for everything, for the lost years, for the unspoken words, for the son who could have been and never was. But when the tears dried, when I could breathe again, I knew something for certain. Someday, maybe, I could forgive him. Someday, when the wound wasn't so fresh, when the pain wasn't so sharp. But that day wasn't today, and maybe it wouldn't be tomorrow. And I had to be okay with that. The trial arrived in May. I didn't go, but Mr. Sterling kept me informed. Tyler pleaded guilty. He accepted a deal. 2 years in prison, community service afterward. Restitution. Tiffany also pleaded guilty. With her record, she received 5 years. And with that, legally, everything ended. But emotionally, the road was just beginning. Because healing isn't an event. It's a process. Long, painful, full of good days and bad days. There were days where I woke up feeling strong, feeling proud of having set limits. And there were days where I woke up feeling like a monster, like the worst mother in the world. But little by little, day by day, I started to rebuild myself. I started going to therapy, to talk to someone about everything that had happened, to understand the patterns I had created, the mistakes I had made. I started doing things for myself, small things. I bought plants for my apartment. I took a painting class. I went to the movies alone on a Tuesday afternoon. I started to know myself, the Susan who existed beyond being a mother, beyond being a victim. And slowly, very slowly, I started to heal. 6 months after the trial, in November, I received a letter from Tyler again. This one was different, more mature, more aware. He spoke about therapy he was receiving in prison, about things he was learning, about responsibility, about consequences. He didn't ask for forgiveness this time. He just shared, as if he finally understood that my forgiveness wasn't something he could ask for. It was something I would give when I was ready, if I was ever ready. I answered that letter, the first communication in months. I wrote about my process, about my healing, about how I was learning to live again. I didn't say I forgave him, because I didn't, not yet. But I said that maybe, someday, we could find a way to coexist, not as mother and son in the traditional sense, but as two people sharing a history, pain, and maybe, eventually, understanding. And that, for now, was enough. Because I had learned something fundamental in this whole process. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't love someone until they change. You can't sacrifice yourself until they value you. The only thing you can do is choose yourself. Put yourself first, and trust that you did the best you could with what you knew at that moment. And that, finally, is what I did. I chose myself. Today is March 17th, 2025. Exactly 1 year after that barbecue. Exactly 1 year after those words that changed everything. I am sitting on the balcony of my apartment. It is small, just a chair and a plant fit, but it is mine, completely mine. It is 2:37 in the afternoon, the same exact time Tyler said those words a year ago. Mom is just one of those dramatic old women who doesn't understand anything. But today it doesn't hurt like it hurt. Today those words are just a memory, a scar that no longer bleeds. This year taught me things I never imagined I needed to learn. It taught me that love without respect is manipulation, that sacrifice without reciprocity is self-destruction, that being a mother doesn't mean being a martyr. It taught me that it is okay to set limits, that it is okay to say no, that it is okay to choose yourself even when the world tells you that you are selfish for doing it. Tyler served 7 months in prison. According to his last letter, he has changed. He has grown. He has understood. Maybe it's true. Maybe not. Time will tell. But that no longer defines my happiness. I no longer define my value by whether my son loves me or respects me. Because I learned that I can love myself. I can respect myself. And that is enough. Last week I got a job, part-time at a neighborhood bookstore. It doesn't pay much, but I like it. I like being surrounded by books, by stories, by people who come looking for something that makes them feel less alone. I made a friend. Her name is Carmen. She is 65 years old. She is a widow. She has 3 children who live in other cities and almost never call her. We drink coffee on Thursday afternoons. We talk about everything, about nothing, about the life we live and the lives we could have lived. I haven't told her my full story. Not yet. But I think she knows. Something in the way she looks at me tells me she recognizes the pain, that she understands the loneliness, that she knows what it is to lose something you will never be able to recover. I took up painting again, something I did when I was young, before getting married, before being a mother, before becoming everything for everyone except for me. I'm not good. My paintings are simple, imperfect, but they are mine, and they make me happy. And it turns out that happiness doesn't need to be perfect to be valid. My therapist asked me 2 weeks ago if I could ever forgive Tyler. I told her the truth. I don't know. Because forgiveness isn't something you can force. It isn't something you owe for being a good person. Forgiveness is something that arrives when you are ready, if it arrives. And if it doesn't arrive, that's okay too. What I do know is that I am no longer angry, not like before. The anger turned into sadness, and the sadness is turning into acceptance. Acceptance that I did the best I could. Acceptance that sometimes love is not enough. Acceptance that you can do everything right and still things can go wrong. Because raising a child is not an exact science. There is no manual. There are no guarantees. You give all of yourself. You love with all your heart. And you hope it is enough. Sometimes it is, sometimes not. And when it isn't, it doesn't mean you failed. It means the other person also has responsibility, also has choices, also has consequences to face. Tyler chose. He chose to manipulate. He chose to use. He chose to humiliate. Not because I raised him badly, not because I didn't love him enough, but because at some moment in his life, he decided it was easier to blame than to assume responsibility. And that was his choice, not mine. I received a letter from Elena a month ago, Tiffany's mother. She told me her daughter is also in therapy, that she is facing her problems, that maybe, someday, she can become someone different. Elena also thanked me. She told me that seeing me set limits gave her the courage to do the same, to stop being an accomplice, to stop sacrificing herself for someone who didn't value her sacrifice. And I realized something. My story isn't just mine. It is the story of thousands of mothers, of thousands of women who give and give and give until nothing is left, who love until that love turns into chains. And we need to talk about this. We need to say out loud that it is okay not to be perfect, that it is okay to set limits, that it is okay to choose yourself even when it hurts. Because the world tells us that mothers must be infinite, infinitely patient, infinitely generous, infinitely forgiving. But mothers are also human. They also have limits. They also need love. They also need respect. And when those things don't exist, when there is only take and never give, it is okay to say enough. This afternoon, while I was sitting here on my balcony, I thought about something. I thought about that Sunday a year ago, about that barbecue, about those laughs that pierced me like knives. And I wondered what would have happened if I hadn't stood up, if I had swallowed the humiliation one more time. If I had continued allowing the mistreatment, I would be destroyed, completely broken, without money, without dignity, without hope. But I stood up. I thanked everyone for the barbecue, and I left the house in silence, with my head high, with dignity under fire. And that decision, that single decision to choose me, changed everything. It wasn't easy. None of this has been easy. There were nights where I cried until I ran out of tears, days where I questioned everything, moments where I almost gave in, almost ran to save Tyler, almost sacrificed myself one more time. But I didn't, and I am here, alive, whole, rebuilt. I am not the same Susan who was here a year ago. That Susan died at that barbecue, and from her ashes, someone new was born, someone stronger, someone who knows her worth. If you are listening to this story and you feel identified, if you have a son who uses you, a relative who manipulates you, a person who takes your love and turns it into a weapon, listen to me well. You are not alone. You are not a bad person for setting limits. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not cruel for saying enough. You are human, and you deserve to be treated with dignity, with respect, with real love, not conditioned love, not manipulative love, real love. And if that love doesn't exist, it is okay to walk away. It is okay to let go. It is okay to prioritize your well-being over the comfort of others. Because here is the truth no one tells you. You cannot fill a broken cup. You cannot give from an empty place. You have to fill yourself first. You have to heal yourself first. You have to love yourself first. And when you do, when you finally choose yourself, the world isn't going to end. People will survive without your constant sacrifice. They will learn to be responsible, or not, but that will no longer be your burden. I look back at this year, at all the pain, at all the tears, at all the sleepless nights, and I don't regret it. Because choosing me was choosing life. Choosing me was choosing the future. Choosing dignity was choosing peace. And today, 1 year later, sitting on this small balcony, in this small apartment, in this life I rebuilt from scratch, I can say something I couldn't say a year ago. I am at peace. It isn't a perfect peace. There are still difficult days. There are still moments of sadness. There is still a part of me that misses my son, that misses the illusion of what we could have been. But it is peace, real, genuine. The peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing, that you stood firm, that you chose yourself. And that peace is worth more than any toxic relationship, worth more than any manipulative love, worth more than the fear of being alone. Because it turns out that being alone is not the same as being empty. Being alone can be liberating. It can be healing. It can be the beginning of something new. It is 3:42 in the afternoon now. The sun begins to go down. The golden light enters through my balcony. It illuminates my plants, my imperfect paintings, my imperfect, but mine, life. And I smile, because a year ago, at 2:37 in the afternoon, my son called me a dramatic old woman. He humiliated me in front of everyone. He made me feel invisible. But today, a year later, I am no longer invisible. I am no longer a victim. I am no longer the mother who gives everything and receives nothing. Today, I am Susan, 62 years old, survivor, rebuilt woman, person who learned that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival. And if my story serves someone, if a single person listening to this decides to set limits, decides to choose themselves, decides to say enough, then all this, all the pain, all the struggle will have been worth it. Because some stories need to be told, some truths need to be said, and some mothers need to hear that it is okay not to be infinite. It is okay to be human. It is okay to choose yourself. It is okay to live. And I, finally, am living. Every story is a mirror, and sometimes the reflection we see is the hardest one to accept. The journey of Susan Miller wasn't just about escaping financial ruin. It was about reclaiming the dignity that should never be the cost of admission for a relationship, even with our own children. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's surrender. If there is a Tyler in your life, remember that walking away isn't an act of cruelty, but an act of preservation. This has been a fictional account, but the lesson of knowing your worth is very real. Thank you for listening.